All right, welcome everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer today. We're setting the stage for what promises to be just a monumental showdown in Group L of the 2026 World Cup, England versus Croatia. Now, we aren't just going to look at formations and basic stats today. We're actually diving into the cultural, tactical, and frankly almost cinematic collision of two entirely different footballing universes meeting under the bright lights of Dallas, Texas. So get comfortable, because this is going to be a fascinating ride. Just picture this stark contrast for a second. From a 5-year-old boy literally herding goats in the rugged Velebit Mountains to a 40-year-old captain stepping onto the most lucrative sporting stage on Earth. This idea perfectly captures the completely unfathomable life trajectory of Luka Modric. But more importantly for us, it really represents the overarching theme of today's explainer. This massive clash between unimaginable, polished wealth and battle-hardened, unbelievable resilience. Okay, let's map out our journey today like chapters in a really gritty, high-stakes sports documentary. We'll start with the Dallas Showdown, move into the English expectation, see how Croatia was forged in the fire, compare their talent factories, look at Kane versus Modric, and finally wrap up with a cinematic collision. Starting right off with Chapter 1, the Dallas Showdown. World Cup 2026, this is where we establish the absolute immense stakes of this opener. So here's the reality on the ground at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. On one side, you've got England, managed by Thomas Tuchel. They're arriving in North America as heavy, genuine title contenders, literally carrying the weight of a nation that hasn't won since 1966. On the flip side, you have Croatia, led by Zlatko Dalic. They are the ultimate veteran underdogs, the team that just refuses to go away, having bagged a silver medal in 2018 and bronze in 2022. It's a clash of two entirely different footballing realities sharing the exact same pitch. Now, if you're a numbers person, the expectations seem pretty clear-cut. Opta's supercomputer has crunched the data and heavily favors the English, giving them nearly a 56% win probability compared to Croatia's roughly 21%. But as we're going to see throughout this explainer, history proves time and time again that just looking at a spreadsheet and underestimating Croatia's system, well, that's a fatal mistake for any football giant. Which brings us to Chapter 2, the English expectation. Let's see how the massive, sprawling scale of English football builds this incredibly heavy crown. £798 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That was the construction cost of the 90,000-seat Wembley Stadium back in 2007. It's this pristine, high-definition symbol of England's polished, almost corporate financial dominance in world football. The English game is the richest on the planet, basically an empire built on billionaire owners and massively lucrative broadcasting deals. But here's the crazy emotional paradox at the heart of it all. Despite that immense wealth, their fan culture is completely different. This quote from Pink Floyd actually hits the nail on the head when it comes to the famous English anthem, Three Lions. The song isn't about arrogance at all. It's rooted in this post-industrial malaise and the gentle, lingering expectation of heartbreak. They arrive at every single tournament with these pristine million-dollar squads, yet the fans carry the heavy historical baggage of expected disappointment. All right, let's totally shift gears here for Chapter 3, Forged in the Fire. We're going to contrast that polished desperation with Croatia's battle-tested grit. The year 1991, that is the absolute defining marker of modern Croatia. We're talking about Croatian independence and the beginning of a brutal war. It's the literal and psychological crucible that forged this entire nation. The players who formed the core of this golden generation grew up right in the shadow of this conflict. And what that did was create this unbreakable, defiant sporting identity, where simply playing for the national team is a profound assertion that they exist on the global stage. You know the ancient city of Dubrovnik, right? Famously used as the filming location for King's Landing in Game of Thrones. Well, think about those high-rising cliffs and impenetrable stone walls jutting right out of the wild Adriatic Sea. That is the absolute perfect visual metaphor for the Croatian national team. They are a hardened defensive fortress. They're built to withstand absolute sieges from much larger, wealthier opponents, and they just simply refuse to crumble into the sea. Moving right along into Chapter 4, the talent factories. Let's actually explore where these contrasting mentalities are cultivated on the ground. See, while England is pumping money into a massive network of billion-dollar Premier League academies, Croatia's survival hinges almost entirely on one hyper-efficient talent production system, the Dinamo Zagreb pipeline. This single club's academy is literally a factory that has repeatedly produced the technical and tactical brilliance needed to replace the seemingly irreplaceable stars of Croatia's past. And the DNA of this system is fascinating. They actually teach their players to pass right through aggressive pressing. More importantly, they are completely comfortable dragging glamorous opponents into really ugly, gritty territory. They embrace long periods of suffering on the pitch without a single shred of panic, relying on this deep, institutional tournament memory. They know that suffering against a team like England isn't losing, it's just part of their process. Which leads us perfectly into Chapter 5, Kane versus Modric. Let's see exactly how these sprawling cultural systems manifest in the individuals stepping onto the pitch. Just think about this incredible contrast in the midfield. On one side, representing the English machine, you've got 22-year-old Jude Bellingham, officially the youngest European to ever feature in 4 different major men's tournaments. He is the fresh, record-breaking face of modern dominance. And then on the other side, representing Croatian resilience, is the 40-year-old seasoned king Luka Modric, entering his 5th World Cup and approaching a staggering 200 caps. It's the absolute pinnacle of fresh youth versus battle-scarred experience. And what's really mind-blowing here is how Modric's personal timeline literally mirrors the birth, suffering, and ultimate triumph of his entire nation. I mean, going from a child herding goats, to a war refugee living in a hotel parking lot, to winning the World Cup Golden Ball, to now leading his team into 2026, his mere presence on the pitch is this intimidating reminder of Croatia's endless capacity to survive. But Croatia still has to survive this: 61. That is the terrifying number of goals Harry Kane racked up in a single season for Bayern Munich across all competitions recently. Croatia's coach Zlatko Dalic has publicly warned his team that they have to figure out how to survive the best striker in the world. Kane is the absolute tip of the spear for England, the ultimate product of their high-definition attacking football. And that brings us to our final act, Chapter 6, a cinematic collision. Let's bring all these incredible elements together into one big visual metaphor. If you were a video editor cutting a sports documentary about this specific match, it's almost like England brings this smooth, high-budget, pristine 4K footage. They are totally polished and fluid. But Croatia? They intentionally inject gritty film burns, visual noise, and chaos into the edit. They act as a pattern interruption to that smooth English machine, dragging that crisp 4K broadcast right down into a grainy, agonizing battle of wills. When we look at how these teams might actually line up, you see this collision perfectly. Both are probably going to run a 4-2-3-1 formation, but the execution? Totally different. Thomas Tuchel's modern, heavily resourced attacking machine with Saka, Bellingham, and Kane is going to directly lock horns with Dalic's deeply experienced, scarred veteran block anchored by Gvardiol, Kovacic, and Modric. It's a tactical mirror, sure, but a complete and utter stylistic mismatch. So, to wrap up the core thesis of our explainer today, this matchup is just so much more than 90 minutes of football. It is the ultimate test of texture. It's a clash of national scales, of entirely different financial realities, and of deeply contrasting historical memories. It is literally the pristine polish of the English Empire going up against the unbreakable grit of the Croatian fortress. Which leaves us with one massive, provocative question to chew on as we head into the tournament. Who is going to impose their reality on that pitch in Dallas? Will the multi-billion-dollar English Empire finally conquer their own expectations? Or are the battle-tested, unyielding Croatian underdogs going to drag yet another giant into the mud? I absolutely cannot wait to find out, and I hope you're just as excited. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.